Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Change Your Mind podcast. I'm your host, Chris Ashley. We explore the intersection between personal development, spirituality, and science. And today we are going to talk about medical astrology, AstroHerbalism, and AstroNutrition. So it'll be a really interesting conversation that I'm excited to learn more about these topics myself. First, a couple quick announcements though. If you head over to the links in the show notes, you'll find a link for my book, Change Your Mind to Change Your Reality. It was endorsed by Bob Doyle, Marcy Shimoff, Michael Beckwith, all from The Secret, John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, and like 10 others in the spiritual personal development space. You'll also find free links to my free masterclass, to free downloads, as well as info on my coaching programs, my courses, ways to connect. So please come be a part of the community, connect. And of course, you'll also find links to my lovely guests' information as well. So speaking of guests, with me today, I have Atla. So Atla is a medical astrologist, astroherbalist, and a green witch. She is obsessed with helping women restore balance to their hormones through their cosmic blueprint and design. She's helped countless women restore balance and vitality to their bodies and rebalance their hormones, leading to pregnancy, normal periods, reduction in cramps and PMS symptoms, and more. She lives on the road in her van with her family and dog. She's the owner of Atla Astrology, as well as Twin Raven Naturals, her apothecary, where she formulates and makes all of the herbal medicine she dispenses. Very cool. Welcome, Atla.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here today.
You're so welcome. And are you in your van right now?
I am.
I can kind of make it out through the blur.
Yeah. It's my wonderful 1992 pink carpeted everything behind me. So
Amazing. And where are you in the country right now?
we're currently in Arizona.
Oh, that's a nice place to be in the winter.
Yes. We don't, well, okay, let me rephrase that. I don't do winter. My family actually doesn't mind snow. I couldn't care less if I ever had to deal with it again. So we compromised and we went here where it's a little bit cold and we can go a little further north and they can get snow if they want it and I can have my hot. So it works out well.
I relate to that so much. I grew up in the Midwest and I moved to California to get away from snow. Right now we live like 3 hours from Tahoe. So my husband, if he wants to go skiing or snowboarding or whatever, he can go do that. But I don't have to see.
Yes, I 100% with you. I think we talked about how I think you grew up in Chicago and I grew up in Chicago too. So I do not miss the cold weather at all. My sister still is in Chicago and I refuse to visit her in the winter. I'm like, no, I'll come see you in the summer, girl.
Yeah, total. And especially in Chicago, I feel like the sky is just gray for like 4 or 5 months straight. Like you don't get blue skies with the sun, and it's so depressing.
Yes. And I have discovered that I am a full sun plant and I need all the sun. And when I don't get it, I am not myself. I'm super cranky. No one wants to be around me, including me. And so out here is just much better for me and what I need. So
I like that. A full sun plant. I might steal that. That's good. I'm also a sun worshiper, so I feel you.
yeah,
All right.
100%.
So I start my episodes the same way. By asking my guests their origin story. I love to hear people's stories about what led them on this path, what got them started. Usually there's some big event that creates a big turning point. So I'd love for you to share your story on how you got started.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely had a big life event. So we will go through that. So at 19, I was diagnosed with endometriosis. I was in the middle of nursing school, busy as all get out with that. Anybody who's been to nursing school will tell you that it is insane. And I took an accelerated program where they crammed 4 years into two. So it was even more insane than like a normal nursing program. So when I was diagnosed with that, I really just did not have time to deal with it. I was exhausted. I was only home for like 3-4 hours a day. And most of that was to sleep and then right back again to school and then the few hours that I could work, all this stuff. So I just was like, oh, whatever, 19 years old, you just don't know what you don't know, and you're young and you think you're invincible. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I thought. Well, then I graduated nursing school and I got my first job, and everything was now like worse. My endometriosis was worse. My periods were getting worse. And so I went to a new doctor in the area that I had moved to for my job. And this doctor was very cold and callous. I don't know why they worked with people, much less women, who were in very vulnerable positions because they had no bedside manner. Walks in after running a bunch of tests, and I was here to like hear the results. He walks in and he's like, "Yeah, so all your results are pretty bad, blah, blah, blah. Your endometriosis has progressed. You'll probably never have kids." Okay. And turned around and left.
Oh
That
my
was it. That was the whole
gosh.
thing. And
That's
I was
terrible.
just like, yes, I was shocked. I was kind of stunned. And then I was like kind of in tears because at that point I didn't know if I even wanted children, but like I wanted that to be my choice, not have it just taken away from me with, out my consent.
Yeah.
And so it was just like super devastating. I didn't know what to do. I went and tried out another few other practitioners, saw a few other doctors, went to one who was supposedly this expert in endometrial pain and like helping you manage that. Their solution was to just go in and cut all the nerves that led to my uterus and like pelvic area. And we're like, there, that gets rid of the pain. And I was like, well, what else does it get rid of? Like, that doesn't seem like a very safe like option or one that I want permanently done. And so it just felt very barbaric to me. Like, this is like the 20th century. Why are we like, like it was just, and after doing all that, I was now like 25 after doing all of this and, trying to get, and I just decided that I was kind of done. I was going to figure it out myself. I was going to find some other way. Modern medicine wasn't helping. The medications they were giving me weren't helping. Everything they were doing was making things worse instead of better. And I just kept getting this like intuitive feel in my body that what I was trying was not right. I needed to find another path. So I went down the path of like the alternative health practitioners, and I got a herbalist and a naturopath and a functional medicine doctor, and I got massages weekly, and like the fertility massages where they really help like open up that area. And I started doing exercises that I had never tried in my life, but they said they were good. And I went to a chiropractor and I did all this stuff. And at 28, I got pregnant naturally with the child that they said I would never have.
Wow.
Um, it was not a great pregnancy. My body did not like being pregnant. I apparently am not a happy pregnant person, so it was not a fun pregnancy. I had multiple issues throughout it. I was on and off bed rest. I ended up having to leave nursing in April. No, no, it ended up being like February. I was supposed to go out in April because I was due in May, and my body was just like not handling it well. I kept going on bed rest, and so eventually I just said, I'm just not going back. I'll just stay on maternity leave early. And so I was on bed rest for like the last 6 weeks of my pregnancy. I kept having issues with my placenta trying to detach from the wall. And so it was just like super crazy. I finally one day I stand up and I feel like this gush of water and I'm like, did my water just break? So I called my midwife. She's like, more than likely that's what it was. Why don't you come in? We'll check things out and see what's going on. So it's like a Saturday. So I go in, I take all my stuff with me because I wasn't sure if it was like baby time or not. She does the test to determine if it's amniotic fluid or not, and it was. And she's like, yay, we're having a baby. Well, my daughter apparently had other plans. She did not want to come out. So I was there Saturday night. We got admitted around like midnight. And then Sunday came, nothing. We were there all day Sunday, nothing. So Monday morning rolls around and still nothing. And everything's not progressing as it should. So they got transferred to a higher level of care at a different hospital where they had like the emergency stuff. They hooked me up to some monitors and wanted to do a little bit of Pitocin to really kind of kickstart my labor since it wasn't doing what it needed to do. My body wasn't laboring properly. And they said, let's just try to give you a little bit of Pitocin and we'll get that started, very low rate, just to kind of see if that helps, right? I said, okay, I agreed to that. So we start the Pitocin, and within 30 minutes of starting it, and it's at like even lower than like their normal level that they start at, I start having this really severe pain in the bottom half of my pelvis, and I am like screaming in pain because it is not fun. they get the monitor starts beeping, and I'm looking at it because I'm a nurse. I know what the monitor is supposed to say, and it was really skewed. The fetal monitor starts going off. Her heart rate says it's 200 and it's not coming down. And so like the nurses all come rushing in and they start doing things to try to, turn things around. Doesn't turn around. I end up in an emergency C-section because she was in distress. And then I started becoming in distress because now I'm worried about my baby. So we have an emergency C-section. It was not my doctor that I had been seeing because I got whoever was there at that moment. But I knew the doctor because I worked at this hospital and I knew him. I'd worked with him. I'd seen him. One of my friends actually went to him and I had taken her to a few for appointments. So I knew this doctor and he was really well known for joking. So he gets into the C-section to start the procedure. Thankfully, they had been able to give me a spinal, so I wasn't knocked out like normal in an emergency section. They knock you completely out because they don't have time for that. Because I worked there, they said, we'll try the spinal first so that you can be awake. So I was wide awake while he was doing this. He makes the incision. He does the thing to get inside the uterus. And I hear him go, uh-oh. And I said, what do you mean, uh-oh? Because that's not something you want to hear in the middle of an emergency C-section. And he said, you have a massive infection in here and we have got to get her out now. And so they got her out very quickly, almost dislocated a shoulder doing it. And within 20, 30 minutes of her being born, I looked at the anesthesiologist that was standing next to me and I said, I don't feel good. And he said, what do you mean you don't feel good? And I said, I mean, I feel like the spinal is moving up and my lungs are becoming paralyzed. I can't breathe. I'm feeling weird. The doctor starts yelling for medicines that I know were emergency medicines and people start running all over the room. And then that was it. That was the last thing I remember. And I was out. And it was very dark and it was peaceful, and I remember feeling like I was surrounded by love and that there was something there, but I couldn't tell you what it was, that just was holding me. And then a few minutes later I came back to and I woke up in the room and the anesthesiologist informed me that I had died and they had brought me back. And I looked at him and I said, okay, but I still don't feel good, and I proceeded to puke all over him multiple times. I felt so bad for this poor anesthesiologist. And so come to find out, when I had been 6 months pregnant, I started complaining about a lot of pain, and I had apparently come down with an infection, but my body had walled it off inside the uterus. And so I never got a fever. I never had a white blood cell count increase. So there was no indication that I had this. So nobody knew that it was going on. And my daughter was protected because she was inside the amniotic fluid sac. So it never got to her until her water broke. And then she had the possibility. Well, when they had cut into my uterus, that had released all the infection into my bloodstream at once. And I went septic really quick, went into shock, and died on the table. And they brought me back, thankfully, because now my daughter has a mom and she's a great daughter. And I'm super happy that I got to be her mom. But that changed everything for me. My entire life was just could not be the same anymore. I had been raised in a really strict religion and that just made no sense anymore. And just I went through this whole crisis of identity when I got home from the hospital with her. And I decided that I needed to make a change. So I went back to school. I got a degree in herbalism, started my own business, and I started helping other women who were going through hormonal issues like I had been and all that. And I started really using this knowledge that I had gained to work on myself better and help heal my body. And eventually I found medical astrology along the way, which really upped my game a lot and really helped as a tool to really help me see what was going on. And then here we are now. So it was quite the journey. My entire spiritual path completely changed, and I'm now a practicing witch and all this stuff. And my religion that I grew up in is just not even a thought in my head anymore. And it's been quite a journey, but I am happy to be where I am.
Wow. That is quite a story. Thank you so much for sharing it. That is, I mean, first of all, I don't know if you know this, I'm 8.5 months pregnant right now. So
Oh no.
I'm okay,
Sorry,
terrifying to hear all of that. But I've been doing hypnosis and you create your bubble of peace, so none of that penetrates.
Yes.
But wow, that's so scary. What a traumatic thing to go through. And also,
yes.
Bodies are so crazy. The fact that your body walled off the infection to protect you and protected your baby from it,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty amazing that your body could do
Yeah.
that.
The
Um,
doctors were shocked. They were like, "We've never seen anything like that." And I'm like, because I was taking my herbs and doing all of my stuff throughout the pregnancy, so I don't know if that played a part in it because I was otherwise really healthy. I don't know. I feel very blessed that my body did do that because otherwise I would probably not be here and neither would my daughter. So,
yeah, and also, like, everything you were saying in the beginning, like, about doctors not having good bedside manners and, like, not getting the answers you want from Western medicine, like, you really do have to be your own advocate, and, I've gone down a similar path before where, like, I've had an issue that doctors were just like, "I don't know." So I've sought
yeah.
out the chiropractor, I've sought out the acupuncturist, I've sought out the herbalist, and it's like you have to be your own best advocate when it comes to your health. It's
Mhm.
it's
You
unfortunate,
do.
but it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So when you died, so you felt it was just dark, you felt peace, you felt love. Was there any other like common NDE? I don't know, symptom is a stupid word for it, but is there
I
anything?
just remember being sad when I woke up because I wasn't there anymore. I didn't know where there was, but I just knew it was better than where I currently was, like, on the earth, right? Like, I want to go back there. Recently, actually, in just the last few weeks, um, I started feeling like this knock, like somebody or something wanted to reach out to me, and so I, did my protections and then reached out and was like, "Who's here? Who wants to talk to me?" And it ended up being Hel from the Norse mythology. She's the goddess of the underworld, and she said she wanted to talk to me, and she ended up telling me, um, part of the message was that she missed me in in Hell, the under Helheim, the Norse underworld, because I had been there before in the past, but she knew it wasn't time for me to come back yet. But she just wanted me to know that she was here to support me and love me through it. And when it was my time, I she would bring me back there again. And so I really think that's where I went, but I didn't know that at the time. And that she was the one that was there that I felt like that love and that, I got you kind of feeling of, you're not alone here in this space. So
Wow. So was it just that feeling of unconditional love and that feeling of sadness coming back that made you think, "Okay, I need to change everything I'm doing?"
it was that, and also I had grown up in a really strict religious household. My dad was a pastor in the Independent Fundamental Baptist religion. We had to have really long hair, had to wear skirts down to our ankles. There was, barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen was your, goal in life if you were happened to be born as a female, and it was very restrictive and it never really set well with me and I never really picked up on it as well as, like, my family probably would have liked me to. And so I'd been questioning it for a while, and of course, growing up in that atmosphere, they were always like, "Well, when you die, if you're not saved, you're gonna go to hell. It's gonna be fire and brimstone. It's gonna be this stuff." And or if you are saved, then you go see, Jesus or whatever. But, like, when I had that experience and I was literally clinically dead for I think they said it was, like, 2 or 3 minutes, uh, I didn't see any of that. Like, none of that was present. There was nothing that they claimed I was gonna see, and that just got me really questioning. I was like, "Well, they told me this, but that didn't happen, and I felt something completely different." And for the first time in my life, I felt truly unconditionally loved because at that moment in time, um, was not feeling that from my family. My ex-husband, who I was married to at this time during the pregnancy, was really unsupportive during the whole pregnancy and everything. And I just didn't, we were not in a good spot. And so I just really felt for once like somebody just, I don't know, I didn't know who it was at the time, but somebody just really truly loved me for who I was and wasn't going to try to push me into anything else or change me. And I think that's really kind of what snapped was when I got back to my house and had time to really like process it once we went through all the stuff at the hospital and I finally got released. It was like we were in the hospital for like a week. So when I finally got home and everything and had time to really process it, I think what really just made me question everything was everything I'd been told growing up. None of it seemed true anymore. And I just was like, okay, well, there has to be something else, but now I don't know what to do or where to go or even what to think because I don't know anything else. I've been literally raised only this one way, and anything else was considered, completely, like of the devil. You don't do that. And so I think that just really it started some kind of like chain reaction inside of me, and I yeah, literally kind of imploded. Also, it was my Saturn return because I was 28 when she was when I was got pregnant with her, and I turned 29 after I had her. So I was right in that Saturn return window where a lot of big life lessons happened. So I don't know if that was also included in it, but yeah, I had like a whole spiritual awakening, changed all of my religious views, went more on the spiritual path, got a divorce. Started my own business, went back to school, and so it was a lot.
Yeah, yeah. It that totally makes sense that you're like, wait, I've been told that I'm going to see these things my whole life and I don't see them. But instead I feel like I'm actually being accepted for who I am. And I don't feel that from anything that you're putting out there. So that totally makes sense. And I forgot Saturn returns were a thing until you just said that right now. That like brought back like my Saturn return. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I remember that
Yes.
thing where it's just like when it rains it pours and it's like everything happening at once and your whole world gets turned upside down."
Yeah.
Okay, so
It was a lot.
yeah, yeah. And again, thank you for sharing your story and for being so vulnerable and honest. I appreciate you. So you started off on this adventure and you found medical astrology. What is medical astrology? Because I've never heard of that before meeting you.
Yeah. It's actually pretty old. It's not as old as like traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurveda. They're both about 5 and 6,000 years old, and this is more around like 2 to 3, depending on which book you read. Um, so it kind of started more in like the Arabic nations and then was really solidified into a more of a like usable system that was more standardized for everyone to use in the 1500s in like the UK, which is, well, now the UK, it was just, England at the time. Um, and in Italy and a little bit like in France and Germany. So that kind of whole region there was really brought into use and solidified into a system. So it is the use of one's natal chart, which in this case is called a planetary health chart, and using where the planets are in their chart in which signs to determine what's going on inside the body. So the planets have influences that are exerted on our bodies. The signs rule different body systems and organs within the body, starting with Aries at the head and ending with Pisces in the feet, and it goes all the way through the body from top to bottom. And so whatever sign those planets in your chart are in, they exert that influence over those body systems ruled by that sign. And so, like, for instance, if your sun is in Aries, Aries rules the head. The sun is a very hot, drying, warming influence in people's lives. And so, if it's in Aries, which is a fire sign, which is already hot and drying, then these people can be more prone to headaches, migraines, strokes, aneurysms suddenly occurring in their head. Um, Due to that hot, dry influence. If it was in Saturn instead, which is a cold and restrictive influence and restricts like blood flow and nutrients to different body parts, and it was in Aries, then we would see migraines and headaches as well, but from a different cause. In the sun, it would be more of like a dry inflammatory process. So we want to use cooling, moistening like herbs and processes that helped bring more like hydration to the body because they're more than likely dehydration caused. Whereas in Saturn, they're more like there's a vasoconstriction going on. We want to use herbs and other things that would open those circulatory system and veins and arteries to the head up, so that you were getting more blood flow and in turn would have less headaches. So that's just a brief. That it's a really cool system. That's a great tool to really help you pinpoint what exactly is happening. And so obviously current transits affect this of what's going on in the sky, which can cause like something to start happening. Like Saturn's in Pisces now. So if you have Saturn and Pisces in your chart, you might have started noticing a lot more of like chronic foot issues popping up this year when Saturn moved into that. And so that can cause some issues as well. Certain moon signs feel the moon phases a lot more than others, and so they will notice a lot of changes in their bodies during those times. So it's kind of a good tool as well for not only seeing what could be happening, what could be occurring in the future, but also what's happening right now and how your body's being affected daily, so you can learn to balance on just a regular everyday basis too, by learning what your body does under certain conditions.
That's super fascinating. And I love that it's not just your chart that you were born with, but it's also like, hey, this is what planet is in alignment with whatever right now, and that's why it's affecting you. And I probably didn't say that right at all, but you know what I mean. Um, so is it only about like the issues that you could have that could pop up or are popping up, or does it show the other side of it as well? Is like, I don't know, like you're going to have really healthy kidneys because you have this planet, or you might have these strengths. And does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, yeah. So it gives an overall picture of like how your body is designed to function and where imbalances and problems could occur and where they might be actually occurring right now and where they might occur in the future. And it also can show like when things started, like if you came to me and you're like, hey, I get all these headaches and nobody can figure it out, can you look and see? And I'll be like, okay, well, when did your headaches start? And you tell me, let's say 3 months ago. I would go back in my ephemeris and I would look to see where the planets were in the sky 3 months ago so we can see what triggered it. And then from there, we can work towards figuring out a solution then. So it can also show, yeah, that, hey, you're like super healthy or you have a better chance of, not coming down with things, right? Because you have a high vital force and vitality and things like that. And so it definitely can be great for preventative use. It can be great for, hey, I have something, so let's get that fixed now. Or, hey, I don't want to get something. What are my odds of getting this? And how can I work to make sure that doesn't happen? Or, hey, I'm feeling great, but I just wanted like an overall view of how my body's designed and things that I can do to make sure that it doesn't go the wrong way, right? And so I've worked with clients for all those spectrums to help them with different things. So it's really useful for multiple different ways of looking at somebody's body.
Oh, that's so cool. That's super, super fascinating. And is it only on your physical health, or does it work on your mental and emotional health as well?
It works on all levels. So when I do like a reading for somebody, I look at their physical health first and foremost because most people are coming to me for that reason, right? There's some physical symptom going on that's bothering them, and they want to figure out why and how they can fix it. But not all physical symptoms are caused by a physical issue. And so a lot of times they can be caused by a mental issue, a mental health issue. They can be caused by a psychological issue. They can be caused by a spiritual issue. And so when you look in someone's chart, you see all aspects of their being. It's a very holistic way of looking at somebody. You see their body, mind, and spirit, and you can work then to determine what is the true root cause and then how we can fix it. So I really like that because it is a holistic modality and a way of looking at the whole person and not just that symptom that they're having currently, right?
Yeah. And then astroherbalism and astronutrition. So those play in, I'm assuming, where you can help prescribe things that are gonna help balance out energies, right?
Yes, definitely. So each herb is governed by a planet and to an extent the signs as well, but mostly the planets. And so like for instance, go back to our Aries example, someone who has like Saturn and Aries and they're having headaches and we can see that it's probably from a vasoconstriction issue, then we would want to work with herbs that have an antipathetic action on Saturn. So instead of being cold and restrictive, they're like, dilating and opening. And so we would want to do that. So like rosemary is a good example of that, which is actually a sun ruled herb. So we'd want to bring more sun into their life that way and help open up the circulatory system. We'd want to look at Mars ruled plants because Mars is the opposite of Saturn. And so we use the opposite planet to balance. So we would want to look at Mars ruled herbs. Which again are very hot drying herbs, but also that open up the circulation. They are circulatory stimulants a lot of times. So it'd be like hawthorn and rosemary for that as well, that would open things up. So it really helps to be able to really formulate herbal preparation that is very specific for that person, their body, exactly what they need to open up or shut down or whatever we're looking for, right? To bring that balance to their body, to really help their body function at its best and support them as they're going through these physical symptoms while their body then is working to heal those. So we can kind of keep the symptoms at bay, but also support their body with the nutrition that it needs, and then the herbal support as well. So it's really great. I love it. It also gives you the timing. So like, let's say for instance that the problem is from like a cancer placement, where their cancer is, then since that's a water sign and it's ruled by the moon, we would want to start their herbal preparations when the moon is in Cancer, so that they have the best chance of that working really quickly right away, and then go from there so that we can work on that problem specifically for that. And I would formulate those herbs under the day ruled by the moon, which is Monday. So I would formulate those on a Monday, and then I would have them start them on the next moon cycle that's in Cancer, and so we'd go from there. So it really works on timing and how to make the preparations and how to balance each planet that we see is affected and afflicted in their chart.
Wow, there's so many layers, so much complexity to it. And it sounds like there was so much to learn. You sound so well versed in it, and I'm like overwhelmed by like how you're just like knocking these out. And it kind of reminds me of Ayurveda a little bit. I know you mentioned Ayurveda
Mhm.
earlier, like just with like the idea of certain things being warm or cool or wet or drying. So I can see
Yes.
like little influences there. I mean, it makes me think like, how did someone figure this out? That like this planet is cool, this
Right?
one's warm, this aligns with this body part. Like that just blows my mind.
Yeah. A lot of the books that I've read for my education, for my degrees in this, have been very much where it was like, so for like the course of 6 years, this one physician, kept track of where everything was in the sky, would know when someone would come in complaining of headaches that, hey, the moon was in Aries that day or whatever. Like, I would, and so started like putting this all together. But it took like years and years of just like making little observations when they saw patients and stuff. It was crazy. I don't know if I would have the patience to do that myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you said that sometimes people come to you just to get like kind of a checkup, like a reading, like not necessarily complaining about any specific symptoms. Does it show where like there's deficiencies, like nutrition wise or anything like that as well?
Hmm. Yeah. So the AstroNutrition piece comes in because each planet rules over certain vitamins and minerals, and each sign governs a cell salt. So a cell salt is a version of a mineral that is more bioavailable to our bodies, and we uptake it a little bit easier. And so what I can see is like, again, if they have Aries and Saturn and they're constantly having headaches, what happens is we would look to see what planets are next to Saturn and what planets are directly across from Saturn in opposition, because Saturn is very powerful. Its influence is very strong, and it is not happy only affecting the sign that it's in. It wants to affect everything else around it. So, like, if their sun is also in Aries, let's say directly next to conjunct Saturn, then they're going to have some issues there, because what happens is that restrictive force is going to restrict the nutrients that the other planets around it govern. So, like the sun governs vitamin A, vitamin D, magnesium, and iodine. If your magnesium levels are low, you can get a lot of headaches. For many people, that can be a sign of low magnesium. You start taking more magnesium, bam, headaches are better. Vitamin A is essential for our cardiovascular health. It really keeps our arteries how they're supposed to be, nice and flexible, slippery, so the blood goes flowing through them and doesn't stick to the sides. And so if you're having a lot of issues with headaches like that, it could be a lack of vitamin A, because your vitamin A is not up to where it needs to be. So we can start that, and we can see that that could possibly be an issue. Iodine can lead to thyroid issues, which can then lead to headaches based on whatever's going on, because Taurus is rules the ear, nose, and throat area, and that ear, nose, and throat area can reflex to the head and cause headaches. So we would want to make sure that they're getting enough iodine daily. Also, Saturn rules its own things, vitamin C, and it rules calcium and fluorine for the minerals. And so sometimes if you're not getting enough calcium, you can get headaches because you need the calcium, sodium, potassium, and magnesium to all work together for the cardiovascular system and muscular system to work and not create spasms. So it could be a spasm headache because maybe you don't have enough calcium. So we would really look at all of the things that are going on with that. And then that gives me a really good idea of what might be deficient in their bodies. And then we can start supplementing from there. To show you how accurate it is, I have had clients where I know nothing about what testing they've had done or that they want to go get done. And I've done a reading, pointed out where deficiencies are more than likely occurring and recommendations for supplements. And I have had several of them come back and go, oh my God, I just got blood work back and I'm low in all of those things that you mentioned. And I don't know how you saw that because like you didn't take any blood. And I'm like, well, it's in your chart. And they're like, you have some kind of voodoo magic because I just spent thousands of dollars on blood work for you to tell me the same thing and never have to poke me. I wish I could have seen you first.
Yeah, and it's gotta be, like, so validating for people, right? That, like,
Hmm.
"Oh, this issue I've been having, like, there's a reason for it." It's, like, written in the stars, right? Like,
Yes.
literally, and
Yes.
and it's part of who I am, and there's things that I can do that
Hmm.
that don't involve taking drugs or pharmaceuticals. There's natural things I can do
Hmm.
to help balance my systems.
Yes, I get that a lot from people. There so many people's first reaction is, "Oh my god, this reading was so validating because I've been struggling with, insert problem here for years and everyone's telling me it's in my head. Shouldn't be that bothersome. I should just be over it by now, like all this stuff and you validated this is how my body is designed to work and there's nothing wrong with it. I just need to accept it. And once I accept it, then it'll be integrated better, right, into that shadow work section. Start doing the shadow work too and integrate those sides together. And a lot of them have had their symptoms completely disappear when they've just accepted that this is who they are, how they're designed, and that it's okay to be that way. It's okay for you, to be a person who can't eat gluten, or to be just, have certain foods bother you, or certain signs really don't do well with pharmaceuticals, and they have a list of allergies a mile long, and they're being told by health providers, well, that can't be, you can't be allergic to all of these, but they are, and then they feel bad, like they're making it up, or like something's wrong with my body, and there's not. You're just one of those signs that is super sensitive to that. And what you really need is more holistic, kind of medications and treatments instead of pharmaceuticals because your body doesn't handle them well. And so learning that makes them so much happier and more comfortable and confident in their own bodies and then managing their own health, right? They feel more confident in their ability to trust their bodies and work with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it makes sense. It's like you've come full circle where you weren't feeling accepted for who you were, and now you get to help other women feel accepted about that. So that's pretty special. Does your chart talk about I don't know, like that area of your body where the endometriosis was?
Yes, actually. So when I got into medical astrology, it was the first thing I went looking for when I started learning things. So I was like, there has got to be a reason for this then, right? Because I had just been so like ragging on myself that I should be better than this. Why was it taking so long to heal? Like I know my body can heal it, but all this stuff. And so when I started learning medical astrology, I went looking and so in my Scorpio placement. Scorpio rules the uterus, it rules the colon, and it rules the reproductive system in general for males and females. And it also rules like the elimination pathways of the body. And so I went looking to see where my Scorpio was placed because more than likely, since it rules the uterus, that was going to be the cause. Well, my Scorpio, I have 5 planets in Scorpio. I have Pluto, I have Saturn, I have Mercury, and I have my sun and moon there. And they're all in the fourth house, which is the house of family and motherhood. And um, Saturn, a Saturn placement in Scorpio is actually one of the major triggers for endometriosis in women. Um, It
Wow.
again, very cold restrictive force, and it restricts the nutrients from getting to, you know, the uterus and all the areas down there that need it, and in turn then leads to eventually a chronic issue occurring. So Saturn governed health issues tend to be very chronic issues where like you feel fine for years and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, well, you have 6 things wrong with you. And you're like, well, like, where did this even come from? And it's because for so many years your body has been dealing with this and has been balancing itself as well as it could, and then it gets to a point where it just can't anymore, right? And that's when this stuff shows up. And so that's basically what happened. And since it's right next to my sun and is right next to my moon, it's really constricting those nutrients that are vital for fertility and good uterine health and good female reproductive system health, that are ruled by those two. And then my Venus is in Virgo, and that's not a placement that it really likes to be in. And so because of that, those very needed nutrients that Venus rules, copper and vitamin E specifically, that are really necessary for good fertility and female reproductive system health, are also being affected. And so when I saw that in my chart, that really helped me. I started supplementing all of those things. I started eating a more nutrient-rich diet. I really started doing more fermented foods and things like that. And it started really turning things around so much quicker than anything else I had been doing. And then I was able to focus on which herbs I really needed for my body specifically, and turned it all around. And to this day, they can't find any trace of endometriosis in my body. So
Wow. That's amazing. That's really wonderful. So I know that you offered so generously to give me a little mini reading. So do you feel like it's a good time to do that?
yeah, definitely. So I'm just going to go through a couple of the major placements because obviously we don't have time for my full readings are like an hour or two long. So we're not going to do that for your audience today. But looking at your chart and the information that you gave me, we have your sun in Libra, your moon in Sagittarius, and your rising in Cancer. And then the other two places that I always look, depending on what's going on, are Mars and Saturn, because they are the two malefics, and they're the ones who most likely are going to be causing an issue in someone's chart. It's very rare that they're not the cause, though occasionally I do see that they are not. So your Mars is in Virgo, and your Saturn is actually in Scorpio too, just like mine. So, and then other places that I look at the first house and I look at the sixth house. The sixth house is the house of health. Combine that with your first house, which is like how well your body holds on to and uses your vital force that you get from the sun. Kind of, they all work together to kind of give me an overall picture of like what your overall health is going to be throughout your life. So with yours rising in Cancer, and then your sixth house is split between Sagittarius and Capricorn. And so in that placement, I see that your vital force has a tendency to be a little weak because of the Cancer placement, but then also likes to move up and outward, because Sagittarius, really being a mutable fire sign, has a hard time holding on to their energy and keeping their vital force where you want it, right? In your vital organs. You want it to stay kind of in the center of your body and really give that vitality to those central organs that we need to stay alive, our liver, our heart, our lungs, our kidneys, in particular. And so with Sagittarius, all their energy tends to go upward and outward, and they tend to really lose a lot of that vital force. So overall, it can be a little difficult for you to hold on to that. Fortunately, you have a Libra sun. Libra suns have great vitality. They rarely ever get sick. They're super healthy most of the time. The only downfall that I ever see with the Libra sun is that so many love sugar and so many sweets. And so they're constantly eating sweets, and their downfall is that eventually that catches up with them. And then they are highly prone to like type 2 diabetes later in life because of that. And then that can quickly turn into some chronic health issues, which then start showing up later in life. So just an FYI to look out for, that if you are one of those sweet tooth Libras, that is just something to monitor and keep an eye on, not more than necessary, right? Having a sweet treat here and there is perfectly fine, but make sure it's not something you're doing way too often. On top of that, so your sun in Libra is like your vital force, your life battery, if you will, right? Libra rules the kidneys, rules the ovaries, and it rules the general like balances in the body. So like the acid alkaline balance, the electrolyte balance, and the hormone balance, especially for women, because it does rule the ovaries. It's ruled by Venus usually, so obviously would much prefer to be in Venus, but being in Sun is actually a pretty decent placement for most people because, like I said, the vitality is really good there. But here I do see that there is an increased possibility for, as I said, that love of sugar, because it's ruled by Venus, and Venus is the planet of like sweethearts and sweets and love, and it likes that. Taurus is also ruled by Venus, and they have the same issue sometimes with having that sweet tooth. So it's just a very common thing that I see with Venusian planet placements. I do see too, and a lot of times in this placement, is a huge dislike of exercise if they have to go and do it alone. They much prefer group classes or something where they have a buddy that comes with them. If they have to do it at all, Libras would much prefer to just stay inside and not do exercise at all if it was up to them, because it's not fun. And I don't blame them. A lot of exercises are not fun. Kidney issues can be a problem because they do rule the kidneys, and an imbalance in the acid alkaline, as well as ovarian problems, mostly PCOS that I see there. They can be prone to acne, and this can be due to a kidney insufficiency, though acne is also common with certain Scorpio placements because Scorpio rules the colon. And so if you're having a colon that's not functioning as well as it should, some of those metabolic waste products that are supposed to be pushing out can build up, and that can lead to a reflex of acne on the face. So another thing too here is that Libras in this sun placement are very strongly influenced by their partners in life. And if they pick the wrong partner, that toxicity in that relationship will bleed into their physical health and can cause a lot of health problems. And when I have a consult with a Libra where I see a lot of like crazy health problems happening, I always ask, hey, what's your relationship like with your life partner? What's going on in that? And a lot of times leaving that relationship fixes all of their health problems, because it's not a physical problem. It's that, kind of, again, spiritual and like mental kind of psychosomatic issue that's happening, because they are very strongly influenced by the emotions and energy of their partner. So picking wisely for Libras is very imperative. Of course, we all make mistakes, especially because, we're humans and it happens, but just know that that's something to look out for. For those listening, I'm assuming you don't have that problem at all.
I picked a good one.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, because I did not the first time around, but my second time around has been amazing. So yes, it's definitely possible to come back from a bad first one if you did. So Moon in Sagittarius, the moon is the distributor of the vital force that you receive from the sun. So the sun is like the battery and the moon is like the wiring that takes that vital force to all of our body parts. So when it's in certain signs, that can be that it's very steady, it goes where it should, it does it in a very nice manner. And other signs, it can be very erratic or sporadic. Yours is in Sagittarius. Sagittarius is a mutable fire sign. So because of that, the vital force can be distributed a little erratically, but also, like I said, it goes very up and out of the body. And so really need to find ways to help keep that vital force inside of your body where we want it, right? Sagittarius rules the hips, the thighs, and it rules the central nervous system with Gemini. And so I see in this placement a lot of times, because the moon also is like our emotions, it governs our emotions and how we feel emotionally. Sagittarius moon placements have a lot of emotions that they have a hard time really dealing with sometimes. They have a lot of anxiety. I see a lot of anxiety in this placement. I see a lot of panic attacks in certain individuals based on other things going on in their chart as well. Bouts of insomnia are really common here, not being able to sit still, always needing to tap or move or do something, which leads to not being able to sleep, because laying still for too long is just their body doesn't like. And I see a lot of people in this placement too love caffeine and drink a lot of it almost to excess, which again does not help that anxiety driven central nervous system that's constantly kind of overworked and overwrought in a Sagittarius placement. So good things to do here for a Sagittarius moon is like yoga and Tai Chi, practices like that that help bring that life force back inside of you and keep it from going outward. And herbs that we can use here too are skullcap and lemon balm, as well as wild oats. Those all work really fantastically for calming that very anxious ridden nervous system, as well as helping individuals sleep, because it calms racing brains, which a lot of Sagittarius moon placements have. Your rising is in Cancer. This is your soul. This is who you really kind of are at your core, but also how people perceive you when you go out into the world. And so a lot of people see you potentially as like a very nurturing, caring individual who's kind of motherly. And so you will be the type of person that will have random strangers completely coming up to you and telling you their whole life story and feeling like venting to you about stuff that is really none of your business because you don't even know this person. Very TMI stuff, right?
That
And
rings true for sure.
Yeah, I see that a lot with Cancer risings. My husband's a Cancer rising, and he gets this all the time. He's like, this person just walked up to me and started telling me all the, I don't even know why. And I'm like, it's your Cancer rising placement. I'm sorry. So in this placement, I do see the need to lean more into the opposite sign of Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn and is all about boundaries and setting up some boundaries, either physical or even emotional and energetic boundaries, to keep some of these people at bay, since your energy levels are very important, and Cancer has a hard time hanging on to those energy levels sometimes because they are constantly, like, people come up to them and constantly being kind of like energy vampires, even if they don't mean to be, right? Cancer rules the stomach, it rules the mucous membranes in general, and it co-rules the uterus with Scorpio. It's ruled by the moon, and so it's very, very much a water sign, and it has a lot of issues with um, stomach issues. They're one of the signs that are very sensitive to medications. They're the kind that have a list of allergies a mile long to foods, medications, environmental, because their bodies are just very sensitive because they're ruled by the moon, and the moon is our emotions, and so it's a very sensitive sign, and in turn that leads to a very sensitive body. So just knowing that is a possibility, and not to be feeling bad about it or upset that your body is that. Leaning more into like the holistic and homeopathic remedies for things is actually really good here, so that your body doesn't get overwhelmed and cause more problems down the road. I do see a lot of dryness here, which is weird because it is a water sign, which then leads to digestive issues, which then can lead to having um, colon issues and things like that, which then lead to nutritional deficits because there's not enough moisture in the digestive tract to absorb nutrition that you're intaking properly. And so because of that, that can lead to a lot of these sensitivities and food allergies because everything's too dry. So water, 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 lots of water with electrolytes is super important for Cancer placements. Your your Saturn is in Scorpio. Like we talked about earlier, Scorpio rules the colon, the elimination pathways, and the uterus with Cancer, and it co-rules the um, reproductive system of both males and females. It's ruled by Mars, so it's kind of doesn't like being in Saturn because Saturn is the opposite of Mars. And we see here, like I said, endometriosis is a heavy incidence here, heavy periods, no periods, which is the opposite of what we would like. Dysmenorrhea, so painful, really painful periods are really common here in this placement. I see individuals that are very either constipated or have the opposite, where they have like Crohn's, which is like an inflammatory bowel issue, which again is caused by that reflex to wherever Saturn is reflexing. And so here I see that there can be a possibility of those things um, either happening down the road or just occurring in general. So it's always good to watch out for that. And then to help make sure it doesn't happen, fermented foods and drinks are a great thing to incorporate into your diet daily. Making sure you're having a very high nutrient dense whole foods diet is really good. And then because Saturn does have a hard time in this placement with holding on to necessary minerals, doing cell salts to increase those mineral stores in your body is always a great thing to do here in that placement as well. And then your Mars is in Virgo, does not like being here either because it is an earth sign, and Mars is a hot fiery planet. In medical astrology, it's hotter than the sun. So it's very inflammatory, it's very drying, and Virgo is a mutable earth sign, and it is very drying earth sign, way more than the other two earth signs. And so because of that, in this placement, I see a lot of liver issues where there's like trapped heat in there, and that leads to digestion issues, which then leads to other issues, which causes a whole cascade. And so a lot of like cooling bitter remedies are perfect here for someone with this placement. I have the same placement, so I get it because I need the same thing. Dandelion root, burdock root, skullcap, lemon balm, and oats are all great here for that, to keep that trapped heat out of there. And it also can lend to a really dry digestive system, especially the small intestine, because Virgo rules the liver, it rules the pancreas, the gallbladder, it co-rules with Capricorn, and it rules the first part of the small intestine. And so we can see a lot of dryness in there, and you do the most absorbing of your nutrients that you intake in the small intestine. And so because of that, if that's very dry and not working properly, you're going to see some nutritional deficits eventually cropping up, which lead to problems down the road. So overall, I do see a potential for down the road, potentially female hormone and reproductive system issues potentially occurring if we don't get those mineral stores up and make sure you're intaking those nutrients that are ruled by the sun, especially with that Saturn placement being so close to your sun in the chart. And liver issues are definitely a possibility here as well. And then diabetes, because unfortunately Virgo's really prone to diabetes as well, especially in that Mars placement. So just keeping an eye on like your diet and your nutrition and that liver, which helps process hormones, and your pancreas, and working on making sure, as hard as it is, that you get some exercise daily, because that movement also is very good for your body in keeping those things at bay. And I think that will keep the majority of things from cropping up for you in the future.
Wow, thank you so much for telling me all of that. That was so in depth, and I'm gonna have to like go back and rewatch this and soak it all up. But it's what really stuck out to me. It's interesting is uterus kept coming up, and then at the end you said reproductive issues, and I've had quote unquote unexplained infertility, which I think is BS. I don't think anything is unexplained, right? There's an explanation for
Nothing's
everything.
unexplained, no.
Yeah, but it took us 7 months or 7 years to get pregnant and like so many fertility
Yeah.
treatments. So
With
uh
that Saturn placement in Scorpio, that's a huge thing.
so what's a good remedy for that? Like what can I do to
A
help?
lot of times, because this is like my thing, right? Helping women with hormones. It's my jam. I've helped so many people get pregnant. It's so much fun. It's my favorite part of my job. Um, a lot of times, especially with this placement that you have with that Saturn placement in Scorpio, and it's so close to your sun, and this is very common for a lot of women, because so many women, unfortunately, by societal conditioning, have been trying all kinds of fad diets because if we're not skinny, there's something wrong with us, and that leads to a lot of nutritional deficits throughout your life that don't get fixed. Also, for some reason, there's this thing going around that low fat diets are the only way to lose weight for a lot of people, so they stick on a low fat diet, which as a woman, we need a certain percentage of fat in our bodies to be able to get pregnant. Our bodies will not allow us to get pregnant if we're too low, a lot of times because they know we don't have the stores to like sustain a pregnancy. So low fat diets can again cause that, because then we can't store properly vitamin A, vitamin E, and vitamin D, all of which are imperative for making sure that we not only can get pregnant, but we can maintain a pregnancy long term. And so those stores get low, and that causes it. So many of my clients I really see are just really low in vitamin A, vitamin E, copper. If you were low in copper, getting pregnant is very, very hard. So when I'm looking at a chart, I look to see where Venus is placed, because it rules vitamin E and copper, which are two very necessary vitamins and minerals for getting pregnant and maintaining a pregnancy. I look where their sun placement is and what's around it to see if anything is impeding their body's absorption of vitamin A, vitamin D, magnesium, and iodine, because you need iodine as well at proper levels to help your body produce proper amounts of hormones so that you can get pregnant and maintain a pregnancy. And if your magnesium levels are low, and in your case you have Mars in Virgo, so your liver is probably struggling to store things, where it stores all the B vitamins, you need magnesium and vitamin B6 together at the same time to produce progesterone. If you don't produce high enough levels of progesterone, you will not be able to maintain a pregnancy for more than like probably a week or two, and will lead to a lot of miscarriages, or in some cases the body won't even allow you to get pregnant because it knows it can't maintain a pregnancy past the first couple of weeks. Bodies are amazing, very amazing things, and they know what they're doing, and if they don't have exactly what they need, they will prevent so much from happening, so they don't wind up in a position where they're having to leach minerals from your bones and your teeth, and causing harm to the mother as well, because once you get pregnant, the body prioritizes your fetus over you, and it will take what it needs from you, which then leads to more health problems down the road. So honestly, looking at your chart, my first thing if we had worked together would have been to get your vitamin A, D, E up, to get your magnesium and your iodine levels where they need to be and really work on making sure that you were getting plenty of nutrient dense foods with all those minerals so that your body had the stores that it needed to be able to not only create the proper amounts of hormones, but also to maintain a pregnancy for you so that you would have been able to, you know, get pregnant and not have to go through any miscarriages, which can be devastating. So,
Yeah, thank you. That's all really interesting. I've worked with my best friend's husband. He actually was on the podcast too. He's a functional medicine doctor. So we worked for
yes,
years and years to make sure all my levels are great. They get tested all the time. Our
good.
issue was during IVF, everything went perfect. Like we were like ahead of the curve at like every
Yeah.
checkbox. Then every embryo was chromosomally abnormal, every single one. And our doctor,
Ugh,
over and over again, and our doctor was like, "I've never seen this before." So it's just interesting. Yeah, I've no
yeah.
idea. So,
I
but
yeah, that's that is one I've not heard of either. That is yeah, that's kind of crazy, but not yeah, definitely not common. I'm sorry for that because that's rough. That
you
makes it
know,
hard.
it is what it is. But anyway, we went a little bit over. I so appreciate your time. Is there if people want to work with you, like how can they find you? What are your offers? How do you work with people? Where are you on the interwebs? All the things.
Yeah, definitely. So if you are looking to work together, you can go to my website, atlaastrology.com, and this is where you can find out all about my services. Currently, I am only offering one-to-one services. The new year, we're opened up some different offers, but for now, it's just the one-to-one. I do either 3-month packages or 6-month packages, and those include an in-depth medical astrology reading. This includes an in-depth consultation. It includes, monthly follow-up calls. It includes a protocol that's specified just for you and herbal preparations as needed based on what I see in your chart, as well as supplements and anything else that you might need. Um, so you can find me there if you want to work that way. Um, I have a on there as well. You can download my free ebook, which is all about your sun sign and your health and how to start learning how to balance your health based on what's going on in the sky and what your sun sign is, and to increase your vitality that way. It is a great little jumping off point if you're looking to kind of do a DIY thing and see how that goes. So that's perfect for that. I also have a podcast that you can learn all about medical astrology and anything else that I decide to talk about. It's called Alchemy, Astrology, and Astro Health, and it's on pretty much every channel that you could think of for listening to podcasts. And so those are the main ways I think to like get a hold of me. I'm on Instagram at Atla Astrology. Um, I have a free community. It's called the Astro Connection community. It's on Discord, and you are more than welcome to come and join us there. I have an awesome group of individuals. We talk about astrology and spirituality and paganism and witchcraft and whatever else pops up because most of us happen to also be moms. So there's a lot of stuff about mom and motherhood in there too, and raising kids. In a more spiritual way than a lot of us were raised. And so a lot of different things. I do a lot of individual trainings in there for just that group. And we do monthly member chats where we all just jump on like a Zoom call and hang out and chill and BYOB. And it's fun. So you can find me there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for listeners, if you resonated with this episode, please like, share, subscribe, and check out all the links in the show notes for Ayer's information, for my information. And I'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your day.